The room went completely silent when the billionaire stepped through the front door and saw his wife pointing a trembling finger at the maid while 20 guests watched in stunned disbelief. The young woman stood pressed against the wall, tears running down her cheeks, her hands shaking around the broken porcelain cup she had been accused of stealing. But the billionaire did not look at the shattered cup. He did not look at the expensive carpet. He looked directly into his wife's eyes and asked one question so simple that nobody in the mansion dared to breathe afterward: "Why is she wearing my mother's bracelet?" And that was the moment the truth began to destroy the perfect life everyone thought they knew. The evening had begun like a celebration from a fairy tale. Everett Sterling, one of the wealthiest businessmen in the city, had opened his mansion for a charity dinner attended by investors, politicians, old family friends, and influential guests. His wife, Celeste, had spent weeks preparing for the event, determined that every detail should prove how elegant and powerful the Sterling family had become. Crystal glasses sparkled beneath golden chandeliers, flowers filled every table, and a string quartet played softly near the grand staircase. Among the staff was Marin, a quiet young maid who had worked in the mansion for almost 2 years. Unlike the other employees, Marin rarely spoke unless spoken to. She arrived before sunrise, worked until everyone was satisfied, and always seemed to carry an invisible sadness behind her gentle eyes. That night, Marin had been assigned to serve drinks near the dining room. She moved carefully through the crowd, terrified of making a mistake because she knew how quickly Celeste could turn cold. Earlier that afternoon, Celeste had warned the entire staff that one misplaced glass or stained tablecloth would be enough to ruin the evening. Marin had nodded respectfully and continued working. She was saving every dollar she earned because she had a younger brother recovering from a serious accident, and the money she sent home each month helped pay for his treatment. She never complained about the long hours. She simply believed that honest work, no matter how humble, was something worth being proud of. Then disaster struck. A guest accidentally bumped into Marin as she carried a silver tray, and one of the crystal cups slipped from her hand. It fell to the floor and shattered. Before Marin could even kneel to clean it, Celeste stormed across the room. Her face hardened as every conversation slowly disappeared. She accused Marin of being careless, then claimed the girl had been acting suspiciously all evening. When Celeste noticed that an expensive bracelet was missing from the dressing room upstairs, her anger became something far more dangerous. Without evidence, she accused Marin of stealing it. Marin immediately shook her head, tears filling her eyes. She explained that she had never entered Celeste's dressing room and had no reason to take anything from anyone. But Celeste would not listen. In front of the guests, she demanded that Marin empty her pockets. The young maid obeyed with trembling hands. A small handkerchief, a key, and a folded photograph fell onto the table. Nothing else was there. Instead of apologizing, Celeste became even more furious. She said that thieves were often clever enough to hide what they stole, then ordered security to search Marin's room. The humiliation was unbearable. Marin stood there surrounded by wealthy strangers while people whispered behind their glasses. Some guests looked uncomfortable, but nobody wanted to challenge the billionaire's wife. Then one elderly guest quietly noticed something on Marin's wrist. It was a delicate bracelet, old-fashioned and slightly worn, hidden beneath the sleeve of her uniform. Celeste saw it too and immediately grabbed Marin's arm. She accused her of stealing another piece of jewelry from the family collection. Marin tried to explain that the bracelet had been given to her years earlier by someone who had asked her to keep it safe, but Celeste shouted over her and demanded that she remove it. That was when the front door opened. Everett had returned home earlier than expected after canceling a business meeting. He walked into the mansion still wearing his black suit, expecting to find music, laughter, and celebration. Instead, he found his wife holding the frightened maid by the wrist while their guests watched in silence. Everett's expression changed instantly. He stepped forward and looked carefully at the bracelet. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he asked Celeste why Marin was wearing his mother's bracelet. Celeste froze. She insisted that she had no idea what he was talking about and claimed Marin must have taken it. But Everett slowly approached Marin and asked where she had gotten it. Marin wiped her tears and finally told the story she had kept secret for years. Before Everett's mother had died, she had secretly visited the small neighborhood where Marin lived. At the time, Marin's mother had been caring for the elderly woman without knowing her true identity. When Everett's mother realized how much kindness the family had shown her, she gave Marin's mother the bracelet as a personal keepsake and made her promise that it would never be sold. After Marin's mother died, the bracelet became the only valuable possession left to her daughter. Marin had kept it hidden beneath her uniform every day, not because she wanted money, but because it reminded her of her mother and the kindness that had once helped their struggling family. Everett stared at the bracelet, recognizing the tiny engraving on the inside. It was unmistakably his mother's. The room became painfully quiet. Everett then asked Celeste the question that finally exposed everything. If Marin had really stolen your bracelet tonight, why is the bracelet she is wearing the one my mother gave away 20 years ago? Celeste had no answer. Then security returned from searching Marin's room. They had found nothing belonging to Celeste. A few minutes later, another employee discovered the missing bracelet inside a jewelry box in Celeste's own dressing room. She had forgotten she had placed it there earlier that afternoon. Celeste's face turned pale. The guests who had watched Marin being humiliated now watched her husband quietly remove the accusation from the young woman's shoulders. Everett apologized to Marin in front of everyone, not because he had caused the accusation, but because he believed the power of his family had allowed someone innocent to be publicly shamed. He told her that no amount of wealth could make cruelty acceptable. Then he did something that surprised everyone. He offered Marin a permanent position managing the charitable foundation his mother had created, with a salary that would allow her to care for her brother without fear. Marin cried, but this time the tears were different. They were tears of relief, dignity, and finally being seen. Everett also announced that the foundation would establish a fund for workers and families facing medical emergencies, inspired by the kindness his mother had received from people who had never expected anything in return. That night changed more than Marin's life. It changed the way everyone in that mansion understood wealth. Celeste had believed status gave her the right to judge someone beneath her. Everett proved that true character was measured by how a person treated those who had nothing to offer in return. And Marin, the woman everyone had watched being humiliated, walked out of that room with her head held high, carrying the same old bracelet that had once belonged to Everett's mother. It was no longer just a reminder of her past. It had become a symbol of something much greater. Kindness may be ignored for a while, but it never truly disappears. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it with someone who believes that kindness still matters. And if you believe every person deserves dignity regardless of their wealth or position, subscribe and stay with us for more emotional stories that remind us what truly matters in life.